Welcome to Kutaki no Ha, Episode 8. It's Friday, October 21st, and I'm Shawn, your host.
All hail, King of the Losers!
Today we're going to be enjoying some more music from Josh Sager. Josh's website, once again, is joshsager, joshsager.com. And from there we're going to be getting back into our three-part interview, part 3 of 3, with Mike Loonam, who's a long-term resident of Japan. And we're going to be talking with him a little bit about integration into Japanese society and a little bit about the training that he's been doing in the years that he's been here. And that will basically wrap it up for this episode. So here's some music from Josh Sager. This song is called Bold Trip. Great stuff, Josh. Thanks a lot for letting us use your music on the show, and keep up the good work. We're going to move into the interview with Mike now, and again, he's going to be talking about integration into Japanese society and a little bit about his own training and why he chose the teacher he did and that sort of thing. So without any further delay, here's that interview. Sorry, to get back, I was just going to say, when we were talking about maintaining the middle line, there's some people that have been here for a long time that haven't integrated into Japanese culture, but you also find people that, like, they bend over backwards and try really too hard.
Yeah.
And they end up kind of becoming the non-Japanese Japanese, and they lose a lot of themselves.
Yeah.
What do you think about that kind of?
Well, we were just at the station, weren't we? And we saw a foreign guy. Well, you saw a foreign guy, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And he was giving out leaflets for an English school that he worked at, and he saw you, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he bowed to you and spoke Japanese.
Yeah, he bowed to me and spoke Japanese and handed me a package of tissues from his English school.
That's like poster child of the guy that's trying too hard. I mean, it doesn't help the Japanese, it doesn't help the foreigners if you're a foreigner trying to be Japanese, but at the same time you want to learn the culture and try and integrate, but you can only get so far. You have to remember that you'll always be a foreigner, which is good and bad, and you have to know where that will take you and where it won't. But I don't know, it's something that it's really individual, isn't it? It's some people just dive in and they're so into becoming something else that they lose themselves, like you say. But you have to just again, with the training, you have to take a step back and say, okay, I've just learned this and I've got good at it, but shall I look at it again or shall I start from scratch again? And we're learning to immerse yourself in a culture. You have to do that, I think. Like you say, observe and re-observe and try different ways to do things, and then if you apply that to languages, then hopefully you'll pick up a language quite easily or quite naturally, rather than just a book and this is the way it is and you should just become what it is it's telling you to do in the book. It's just a book, so I think life is quite more complex than that. So well, that gets into the whole thing about Hatsumi Sensei talking about making form and breaking form and throwing things away and making new things out of the pieces of the things that you've broken and this kind of thing. It's quite an interesting concept that you can apply to many areas of life, isn't it? Yep. Absolutely. More about training in the dojo. Okay. What teacher do you spend most of your time training with? I train with Mr. Noguchi, and as I said, like early on, I was just like a trainaholic and went to lots of different people, and I really valued that I could train around, because at the time, foreigners were kind of cheeky. They kind of pushed the limits. When I came over here, there was people training at one dojo only, Japanese, of course, just train at the one place and almost never train around. And then the foreigners kind of broke the boundaries on that, and some Japanese people did what the foreigners were doing and training around. So I trained around a lot and followed what everybody else was doing, and then I kind of latched onto Mr. Noguchi's movement for lots of different reasons. It's just very intriguing, entrancing, and very technical, and physically he's about my size, I suppose, my height and stuff. So I thought I would try and get with a teacher that was about that, so I could translate what I was seeing as easily as I could, maybe if there was a similarity of build and size and stuff. That's an interesting point, a good point maybe about the reason for choosing, one of the reasons for choosing a teacher, because you have to take what you're getting and apply it to yourself, and most people aren't really able to change their body type. It's hard enough as it is. So if you're a big guy, maybe you want to go to one of the taller, heavier set kind of teachers or whatever, and for me, I'm quite small, and even in England I'm quite small, so by height or whatever. So Miss Noguchi kind of seemed to be on some level kind of suitable for me to try and study with. So so I was really impressed by like the flow and the sense of timing and stuff, and there was theoretical kind of study in there, but there was also kind of a real-time sense to what he was doing. So rather than stand there and catch a punch and then do something while the guy stands there, you've got to keep him moving by doing good taijutsu. And I thought, well, if you can do that then hopefully you can transcribe that into like a real situation if it ever happened. Hopefully it won't, because you run a lot. And I thought, well, it's more real time. It's more about, you know, not stopping in the middle of it. And some of the classes were very technical and very focused on the intricacies of the taijutsu, which is great. And if you can start from that end of the technical side and build up, then eventually I'm sure the flow will come and the timing. And so I just decided to go from the other side of the spectrum.
Cool.
And try and get flow and timing and hopefully get good taijutsu one day. I keep missing and getting punched in the face. So.
Well, that happens to all of us.
Yes. So, so it was just somebody that was, and of course his personality is a big thing as well. He's very friendly, jovial and positive and very open to everybody, regardless of where you're from. So you can't not like the guy. So it's pretty much like everything that I was looking for in a teacher to study taijutsu with. So
great. I think it's good to like you say, you know, find a teacher and kind of stick with them and build a relationship with them. I think some people, even though they have lived here for a while, they still kind of skip around a bit.
Yeah.
And you do get a lot of, say, breadth of perspective that way, which is important. But I think too, it's important to really forge a relationship, a personal relationship with your teacher, and that can really only be done in Japan by spending a lot of time with.
Yeah, well, you only have
person.
a limited amount of time, so I mean,
yeah.
As I said, you've got to change and you've got to try extremes, and so I tried really training around with tons of different people and trying to do everybody else's different take on taijutsu and basics. And then there came a time where it just felt natural just to gravitate towards a certain teacher or a couple of teachers, and then just work with them and see what I could learn and focus on. So
cool.
I don't know, maybe one day I'll start training 5-6 times a week again and just be dead, just be warped and burnt out. But it's another thing as well. You will get burnt out, I think, just training so much mentally and physically. You can't sustain. Apply like an analogy of learning like 6 languages every week. You know, you couldn't do it. You wouldn't be speaking any of those languages good.
Yeah.
You know, not one of them would come out as one language. It would be just a complete mix, and therefore you're not communicating, you're not getting your message across.
Well, that's a really good analogy, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. What do you have up your sleeve as far as plans for the future?
I don't know. It's very Japanese to answer I don't know, so I will answer I don't know. But Hatsumi Sensei is still teaching, and Miss Noguchi is still teaching, and even though they're quite they're getting on in years a little bit, it's nice to see that they're still wanting to teach and train, so you can't not let that opportunity go by. So I still want to stick around a little bit longer. And it's good to see them being in their 60s or 70s and being able to move with their age. They're not trying to act like they're 40 or 50 or 30 or 20. They're moving like they should, completely relatively to their age. And so that's kind of the thing I'm looking forward to being able to do, if I can, is to, you know, not hit like your 40s and 50s and still try and do taijutsu like you're 30 or 20 or whatever, because your energy levels are different, your body's different, your flexibility is different, for better or for worse. So that's what I want to do. I want to be able to learn to scale myself with what I have and what I'm able to do to the taijutsu, or the other way around. I mean, whichever way works, I'm going to try and keep doing that. So I'll be around a little bit longer.
You'll be around.
Thank you. Yes.
So if anyone comes over and they see this guy that looks like Mike at the dojo, just go up and say hi.
Please say hi. Don't get the wrong impression. I'm not standoffish. I have my inner space as well, so, and that's usually where I'm hiding in the corner. So. My inner space.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
To close off the interview with, is there anything that you would like to say about your own podcast?
Yes, I have a Podgy's podcast thing. Podgy's Tokyo Talk. Podgy. Tokyo Talk. Good band. A little bit of chat and music, Podsafe music, and if you want to find me, I'm on iTunes. Do a search for Podgy, and we have Shawn on the show as a first guest, and we're going to have some other people on from maybe from the dojo and some other people in Japan, foreigners and maybe some Japanese people. So you can hear kind of a view of Japan from the inside out. Because one reason I started the podcast was to sort of show people another view of Japan from inside, because so many people have, you know, cliches and stereotypes of Japan, you know, Zen gardens and kimono and geisha everywhere, and they still kind of grate on me a little bit. I wish people could see Japan for the good and the bad, so the podcast was nobly brought about like that, but it's getting a bit weird, so if you're too afraid to tune into some strange voices and some odd music, then go to Shawn's podcast.
Well, I've subscribed to yours, and I've really enjoyed it, so I'm continuing to listen and look forward to the things that you're continuing to put out there.
Okay, thank you.
So thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
That was Mike, aka Nodako, on Kutaki. Once again, he has a podcast himself called Podgy's Tokyo Talk, which you can find by doing a search in iTunes or probably even Google for PODGY. I see Mike's also just released episode 8 of Podgy's Tokyo Talk, so if you haven't listened to that already, be sure to grab it. This wraps up episode 8 of this podcast, and in future Kutaki no Ha podcasts, we're going to be looking forward to interviews with Joel Craig from Canada and also Mats Hjelm from Sweden, who we'll be talking to in the near future. So we look forward to having them on future podcasts, and for now, we'll sign off. Have a good day.